Tonight we'll take a look at the beginning of the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The theme of the sixth canto is Poshana, protection. And especially, you may note, in the sixth canto, you have Krishna with affection displaying protection for devotees who screw up. There's Ajamil, he screwed up big time. And then there's even Indra, who offended his spiritual master. And also Chitraketu caused problems with Lord Shiva's wife. But somehow or other, they came to their senses after going through various ordeals. So this sixth canto is interesting because it indeed shows Krishna's affectionate protection, even for devotees who get themselves in hot water. But you're not supposed to take advantage of this. Oh, well, okay. I get myself in a mess voluntarily on purpose, and then Krishna will affectionately arrange for me to he'll affectionately sort me out. The greatest offense in chanting Hare Krishna is to commit sinful activity on the strength of the holy name, thinking that because I'm chanting Hare Krishna, that will wash away the sinful activity that I purposely do. One thing you should bear in mind about Ajamil. How many of you have read the sixth canto? Raise your hands. Very good. His problems were not ordinary. Actually, the acharyas say that Ajamil's fall down was accidental. He was overpowered by material nature. He just plunged into instincts that he had maybe in another lifetime. Even though he was born in a Brahmana family and was being trained as a young Brahmana boy, even in the Gurukula, but somehow or other he became overpowered by a vision he had, a sight that he saw on his way from fetching materials for a yajna for his guru. He happened to see something that would be considered light stuff and silly these days. He just saw a couple embracing on a bench. It's like kid stuff, huh? But somehow or other, he took that image deep into his heart. He couldn't forget that lady of loose character. He sought her out even after he was married to a nice Brahmana girl. He sought out this night worker and spent practically his whole life with her, committing crimes to support her and the children he procreated with her. The history of Ajamil shows you how powerful material nature is. So as we enter the sixth canto, bear in mind what's already happened in the fifth canto at the end. Shukadeva Goswami has explained to Pritya Maharaj about hellish destinations. We should be very careful about our classifying hellish destinations as just something, fantasies or mythologies meant to scare us. Maybe when you were little kids, your parents or parent, you have to be more accurate these days, would threaten you, if you don't stop being naughty, I'm going to call the boogeyman. Anyone? Yeah, yes. Purnananda, you were threatened like that. Anyone else? Only Purnananda. So sometimes people think, oh, this description of the hellish planets, it's just fantasy meant to scare the pants off of you. So you're a good person and you don't do all the good stuff that a sinful activity represents. No. Have common sense. Even on this Earth planet, you will see places of hellish quality. It just happens that due to your karma, you weren't born in such a place, but millions upon millions of human beings are. And of course, the way the Earth planet goes on is that a place that was formerly nice can turn into hell, and a place that was formerly hellish can turn into nice. Governments change, the geography changes, the climate changes. Just like now, there's so much talk that California is no longer the land of the dream. So many wildfires and heat waves, and so what is a nice place one day turns into a hellish place the next day. Here we are in New Zealand, the Shaky Isles. One earthquake and all the Kiwi complacency is finished. So just because we haven't yet experienced what it's like to be in a hellish place on this planet, that doesn't mean such places are mythology. So the sixth canto begins with encouragement from Pritchett Maharaj to Shukadeva Goswami, expression of gratitude. Pritchett Maharaj is going to review what Shukadeva Goswami has explained in the fifth canto. When you do that to a speaker, it obviously enlivens the speaker. Oh, you can recite back what you heard from me. You must have been listening. So yes, to encourage Shukadeva Goswami. And also, Pritchett Maharaj is astonished that how can persons neglect the path of asamsriti, stopping the cycle of repeated birth and death? How can they neglect that? I'm astonished. Shukadeva, you just explained about the hellish planets. I'm astonished. People don't get it. They don't understand. Every action has a reaction. So those emotions are being stirred as we enter this sixth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Gratitude. Thank you for explaining what you've explained. And here's what you explained. I heard it. I can repeat back to you the essential themes that you've elaborated upon. So it's that gratitude, desire to encourage the speaker, Shukadeva Goswami, and then there's amazement. What are these human beings doing? Unbelievable. So we'll chant the first verse of the first chapter of the sixth canto. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Parichat Uvacha. Nivritti Marga Katita. Adal Bhagavatayata. Krama Yoga Palabdena. Brahmanayat Asamsriti. Nivritti Marga Katita. Adal Bhagavatayata. Krama Yoga Palabdena. Brahmanaya Samsriti. Nivritti Marga Katita. Adal Bhagavatayata. Krama Yoga Palabdena. Brahmanaya Samsriti. Vaishnavis. Sri Parichat Uvacha. Maharaja Parikshit said, Nivritti Marga, the path of liberation. Katita, described. Ada, in the beginning. Bhagavata, by your holiness. Yata, duly. Krama, gradually. Yoga Upalabdhena, obtained by the yoga process. Brahmana, along with Lord Brahma, after reaching Brahmaloka. Yat, by which asamsriti, cessation of the repetition of birth and death. Translation. Maharaj Parikshit said, "O my Lord, O Shukadev Goswami, you have already described in the second canto the path of liberation, Nivritti Marga. By following that path, one is certainly elevated gradually to the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, from which one is promoted to the spiritual world along with Lord Brahma. Thus, one's repetition of birth and death in the material world ceases." Purport. Since Maharaj Pritchett was a Vaishnava, when he heard the description at the end of the 5th canto of the different hellish conditions of life, he was very much concerned with how to liberate the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya and take them back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, he reminded his spiritual master, Shukadeva Goswami, about the Nivritti Marga, or path of liberation, which he had described in the 2nd canto. Maharaj Pritchett, who at the time of death was fortunate to have met Shukadeva Goswami, inquired from Shukadeva Goswami about the path of liberation at that crucial time. Shukadeva Goswami very much appreciated his question and congratulated him by saying, Pariyane shate prashna kato lokahitam nirpa atmavit sammata pumsam shrotavya dishuyat paraha. My dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial for all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. We'll speak about this first part of the purport. Om Agana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giradhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pritchett Maharaj is recalling the 2nd canto, in which Shukadeva Goswami describes how a mystic yogi can rise up through the various planetary systems and make it to Brahmaloka, the planet of Lord Brahma. And after being on Brahmaloka for some time, you know how Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhupana Loka, Puna Arjuna Arjuna. From the highest planet of the universe, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest, all are certified by Krishna as places of suffering. We ought to get the hint from Bhagavad Gita that whatever we consider materially nice is so last class, so trashy compared to the upper planetary system. But here is Krishna deriding even the upper planetary system. He says, even from Brahmaloka, even up there are problems. What are those problems? Samsriti, repeated birth and death. Well, do we really care about that? Is that really a motivating factor for you? Repeated birth and death. It happens. You just gotta, try to do the best you can with your life and try to be fulfilled. Try to have a few magic moments, What else can you do? It's amazing how we are so unmotivated by the desire to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. It's just not a major factor in our life. We've been inculcated with ignorance since birth. No matter how educated and professional and experienced we are, we suffer from this vast ocean of ignorance, which we take as normal. You've often heard me say that if your former friends or your family members ask you what is your main goal in life, and you say, to stop the cycle of repeated birth and death, you've gone loopy. How have you taken upon yourself such mythology that's just meant to scare you and deprive you of all the good times in life. So we are habituated to such ignorance. And this is why we have to hear again and again and again. Otherwise, we're finished. We're just drowning in too much nescience. We should never think, oh, I've heard all this before. I know Bhagavad Gita. I've read the 6th canto. We need to be honest with ourselves. My only lifeline to sanity is hearing this again and again and again. Because we can see the enjoying streak in us is so deep. I am the Purusha. I am the enjoyer. And our mind is so quick to concoct our own pastimes of pleasure. The mind will show you how we really want to imitate Krishna. We imagine ourselves in so many nice situations in which our senses are being fulfilled. Our goals are being achieved. This is so deeply ingrained in us. It's not simply a knee-jerk reaction. It is us. Ahankara, false ego. The false ego is the opposite of the real ego, which always considers that we are the eternal servant of Krishna. Forgetting that, you still have some kind of identity, but it's false. You may remember the verse often quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vayam Dutiya Abhiniveshatasya. It's a Bhagavatam verse. Quoted several times in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When you contact the material energy, your conception of life becomes reversed. Instead of your thinking, I am Krishna's servant, you now think, I am Krishna's competitor. In the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami gives you the slow train, the process of the slow train back to Godhead. And some yogis want to do that. Before they go back to Godhead, they want a tour of the whole universe. So Pritchard Maharaj is reminding Shukadeva, you explain that. And even though it's a gradual process, the ascent, the gradual ascent up through the various planetary systems of the cosmos, it does end in freedom from the cycle of birth and death. Because when Lord Brahma, at the end of his life, and even Lord Brahma dies, it's not a biological death like you have, but still, his life comes to an end. All those who are there with Lord Brahma on his planet, who are accepting his guidance, they go back to Godhead along with Lord Brahma. So Pritchard Maharaj is pointing out, thus one's repetition of birth and death in the material world ceases. So again, how much do you accept that goal as a viable occupation? Indeed, your most essential occupation. To stop revolving in the cycle of repeated birth and death. Now, just tell yourself that, well, okay, I can see myself getting old. I remember what it's like to go from a child to a teenager and a teenager to, well, now I'm in my 20s. And I guess, being old will be like that, And then I don't know. And it's too much for me to think about right now. Right now, I've got my mind and senses, and they are pushing on me. I want to enjoy life. What's wrong with that? What happens, happens. This was our life before coming in contact with the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. To cut through the depth of ignorance that has so swallowed us up, we need regular hearing. It's amazing. I hope you notice as your years in Bhakti go by that if I don't hear something every day to remind myself of what is the mission of human life, if I don't hear something about Krishna every day, I forget so easily. I become overwhelmed so easily. We like to think we know it all. We're competent. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. I know how to get what I want mostly. There are always going to be some problems. But daily hearing with attention of the Hare Krishna mantra and Srimad Bhagavatam makes you humble because you realize, I got to hear this every day. I'm so easily overrun. I'm so easily overpowered. And you may go for some days without paying attention to your chanting or reading. And then when you do pick up where you left off, you're shocked. Gosh, I was out of it. And how refreshing this is. I feel like a human being again. So these are various emotions that we can feel on the way to Krishna. Just like Pritchard Maharaj is pointing out his emotions to Shukadeva Goswami. Gratitude, you've explained this, you've explained that. Let me give you a quick review of what you taught me so that you're encouraged to say more. And we've already discussed Pritchard Maharaj's emotion of astonishment. Why do living entities who are conditioned not accept the path of liberation? So you have to ask yourself that question. Why? What answer could you come out with? Well, there are things I want to do. There are things I want to achieve. I want nice times. I want some enjoyable moments. And old age, well, I guess I'll worry about that when it comes. I don't remember dying before, so maybe it's not so bad. So this is the problem we have. It's a structural problem. Society is structured in such a way that the real purpose of human life is destroyed. It's not even acknowledged. To destroy something, you have to acknowledge that it exists. But human society is structured in such a way that it is inhuman. There is no mention. There is no reference given to endeavors to stop the cycle of repeated birth and death. But if you truly want to make your life revolutionary and you truly want to make your life progressive, then you deal with this. Now, if you would deal with increasing your income, increasing your property holdings, chopping and changing relationships, everyone would say, well, yeah, that's life. But to be dedicated, whether male or female, to be dedicated to a life of asamsriti, causing cessation of the cycle of repeated birth and death. Who takes that seriously? It just doesn't click, does it? You look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'd like to stop the cycle of repeated birth and death. It just seems so exotic, doesn't it? Especially you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, your body is healthy and strong, relatively speaking, or at least stronger than what it will be in a few decades. So you want fulfillment. That's it, right? Fulfilling relationships, fulfilling careers, fulfilling hobbies. That's what you want, fulfillment. Fulfillment means I want to feel full of good things. Right? I want personal relationships that make me feel warm and wanted. I want comfort. I want entertainment for my mind. This is where our attention is focused, right? So we always have to put ourselves under a microscope and analyze what is our agenda. And this requires strength, spiritual strength, because you don't have any support from society to do this. If you're going to live a sane life, you won't get any support from society. If you want to trash your life, throw it away, waste it, you'll get full support. You'll be told, well, just make some money. What's the problem? Just chop and change till you find a nice partner who you'll be with for a few years. And that's the way it is. Figure out how to buy a house in New Zealand's crazy real estate market. And that's all. And then you get old and you get older and you get older. And you move to Waikainai, the waiting room. But here's what you may hope will make everything worthwhile. You'll have children and grandchildren who will continue life. You'll think that your life is being continued through your children and grandchildren. Let them enjoy. Let my children enjoy. Let my grandchildren enjoy. Well, what about you? No. Let my children, let my grandchildren enjoy. If you're not enjoying, what makes you think your children and grandchildren are going to enjoy? So it's just astonishing the depths of ignorance that we're drowning in. And this is why Pritchett Maharaj is astonished. What are these living entities thinking? What are they doing? Now, bear in mind that Pritchett Maharaj, he's got 7 days to live. He's not an old man. He's actually, relatively speaking, he's a young man. But he's so dramatically demonstrating how to make the most of your life. And Shukadeva Goswami has congratulated him for his question. Your question is glorious. It's beneficial for all kinds of people. It's approved by all transcendentalists. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. It zeroes in on what is most essential. So Pritchard Maharaj has heard about the hellish suffering, and he's astonished. Doesn't anyone want to escape such reactions? It's very unpopular to think that there are painful reactions to what we think are ordinary endeavors to enjoy. Very unpopular to think that way. People will tell you, just be a human being. To err is to be human. Yet, in this sixth canto, you're being presented with the path of Nivritti Marg, the Marga, the path of detachment from material life. You're being presented with Nivritti Marg, the path of detachment from material life, as the obvious choice for an intelligent human being. So how do you recognize an intelligent human being? He or she realizes the futility of the endeavor for material fulfillment. That's the first step. If you haven't come to that platform, then according to Srimad Bhagavatam, you're not a human being, even though you may have 2 arms and 2 legs. Human life begins with questioning the problematic nature of material enjoyment. So that's your ticket to get into the arena of human existence. Otherwise, you're not, you haven't fully demonstrated human life. So what can you say about the futility of material enjoyment? The flavor, as we've explained so many times, and Prahlad Maharaj has highlighted, the flavor is what you're after. When you talk about success, when you talk about fulfillment, when you talk about pleasing this and entertaining that, and nice this and nice that, you're talking about flavors. We've discussed this before. The science of rasa. The living entity cannot live without rasa, without flavor. So whatever you're doing, as an imitation Purusha, as imitation enjoyer, whatever you're doing is all about pursuing flavor. Relationships, oh, you dream, oh, this will happen, that will happen. I will taste this flavor, I will taste that flavor. Any kind of entertainment, hobby, working, yes, you're going to work to get paid. And you hope that the pay will allow you access to certain flavors. And even you're actually being a servant at work. And that means a certain flavor. You're hoping the work will give me some recognition, some appreciation, and some feeling of power and control when I get paid. No matter what we're doing to advance our material life, there's always the quest for flavor. Now, what is the revolutionary reality that Prahlad Maharaj points out? He says the flavors are all the same in terms of material indulgence. Never mind, you're a human being, fish, tree, dog, elephant, the flavors are the same. So we can make an experiment tonight. I've been thinking, how can I get you to really digest this point. So who is preparing prasad for tonight? Okay, let's say when it's time to take prasad, you sit down or you go to the bain-marie and they offer you the choice of 3 receptacles or plates, or one is plastic, one is tin, the other is golden, encrusted with diamonds. You would think, well, I'll take the golden plate that's encrusted with diamonds, put the prasad on that. But the fact is, the food, the spiritual food, will taste the same whether it's put on a plastic plate or a tin plate or a golden plate encrusted with diamonds. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the taste of the senses interacting with the sense objects is the same in any species of life. Now, it's true that in your mind, you can imagine a superior experience. That's why Krishna in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about mental concoction, how material fulfillment is a mental concoction. It's all in the mind. So factually, whether you take the prasad on a plastic plate or on a golden plate, the actual taste of the prasad is the same. You got it? But in your mind, you're thinking, ooh, golden plate, ooh, whoopee, I've got it made. But the food tastes the same. If you can figure this out, you save yourself so much trouble. When you go to sleep at night, when you truly go to sleep, whether you're on a cheap bed or a very expensive bed, you're asleep. It's not that while you're in the middle of your sleep, you're thinking, oh, luxurious, I'm on such an expensive bed. The flavor of sleeping is the same. Of course, when you wake up, then your mind takes over. Ooh, look at this. What do you call them? A king-size bed with, what do they always do? They have all these pillows on. It drives me crazy when I'm. Yeah, when I'm traveling overseas, I have to stay in so many different places, and devotees wonderfully offer hospitality. But I think especially in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, you can't just have a bed with one pillow. You have to have, all these pillows. What do people do with this stuff? It's just a custom, isn't it? I just knock them off the bed onto the floor. I can't figure out. It's just. And then you have this piece that you put on covering the lower half of the bed, right? What is it called? Not the duvet. No, it's a decorative, a throw. Huh? A throw? You said something else? No. It's a throw, made of some fancy acrylic something. So when you're awake, you notice all that stuff. Ooh, I'm reclining in luxury. But when you're asleep, you're not thinking about all that. The flavor of the sleeping is the same as the dog is, in its doghouse. But in our mind, we imagine so much progress and advancement. But the actual flavor that you're tasting, the flavor that your senses are tasting, is the same in any species of life. You have to really think about this. As you may recall, it's the first thing that I read that I was like 1 or 2 pages into reading my first Bhakti literature. I had read a Bhakti Guided magazine maybe 2 years ago before that. But the first thing that really impacted me was reading the Transcendental Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj when he explained this point. Why should you work so hard when you're just getting the same flavor as any creature is getting? But you have to think about this. It doesn't come intuitively to you because we're drowning in ignorance. What comes intuitively to us is, I'll enjoy more in this way, I'll enjoy more in that way. By changing the circumstances, by changing the packaging, by changing the person that I'm involved with. But the material flavors remain the same in any species of life. So this is another reason why Pritchard Maharaj is astonished. Don't these living entities get it? They're being exploited, they're being ripped off by illusory energy, and they don't care. They make no endeavor to get relief from the cycle of repeated birth and death. Doing so is not considered a proper vocation. Just like when Vishwamitra Muni came to see Maharaj Dasarath, the father of Lord Ramchandra. And Maharaj Dasarath greeted Vishwamitra Muni by asking him, how are you progressing in your attempt to conquer over repeated birth and death? Dasarath Maharaj is recognizing, you're a Brahmana, this is your occupation. So how's your occupation going? So that is a real human society. You'll also note in the 6th canto about Chitraketu, when the sages come to visit him, Angira Rishi. The question is asked to the king, you're lamenting. Is everything all right in your kingdom? Are the people behaving properly? Is everything under control? That's how you talk to a Kshatriya. So in a real human society, everyone's purpose is recognized and all the purposes center around conquering the cycle of repeated birth and death. So Chitraketu was supposed to manage as chief executive under the guidance of Brahmanas. So the Brahmanas are asking him, have you made a suitable society so that people can actually make advancement? Are you administrating a proper society? Are the people happy? So we live in such whimsical, foolish times that we take it for granted. So you have to you have to accept the obvious. Your leaders don't have a clue what to do in terms of maximizing their human potential. Not a clue. Just make it from childhood into your teenage years, right? And then when you're a teenager, party hard and blow yourself out, burn yourself out. And then you go to the uni and you blow yourself out even more while piling up huge debts. Okay, you finished the uni, you burnt out on relationships, on parties, and you've got about $30,000 debt. And then what? Well, if it weren't for COVID, it'd be time for the overseas experience. Got to go to the UK or somewhere. And then you chop and change partners, shopping around. It's considered a normal part of life. Just keep changing partners, jumping from one to another, and who knows, you might find someone who seems to be a fit for at least a few years. And you get a job, and most likely the job you get has nothing to do with what you studied at the uni. And then, well, up until 20 years ago, you would think about buying a house. Now you can forget it for the most part, unless you're like the Prasads, you can build your own house. And then what? Well, we don't know what we're doing. Maybe if we have some kids, they'll show us what to do. And then you just get old as the kids grow up. You get frustrated with your partner. You separate. You explain to the kids that you'll be happier when your parents are happy, and your parents will be happy when they're not living together anymore. And you get older and older. You don't care because you get your universal health care. And then you give up your body, and well, that's the way the universe is. We were explaining, maybe it was in Auckland on the Sunday program at the Loft. Many philosophers accept that human beings are creatures searching for meaning. You're always looking for meaning in life, something meaningful. You can't exist without the quest for meaning. And these days, that means your own meaning. You can't listen to Krishna because that's Krishna's meaning. You have to find your own meaning. People will all nod their heads in agreement. You're trying to find your own meaning. Oh, very good, yeah. As I've explained before, it's like a 3-year-old wandering into the middle of an intersection, a busy intersection. What's the kid doing? I'm finding my own meaning. You say, crazy, you don't have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea of the danger. You're going to be run over by a car. I'm finding my own meaning. We think we're so competent. And where do we get this false sense of confidence from? Our senses. I know what to do with my senses. I'm competent. So we have this quest for meaning. And in the Kali Yuga, you don't look for any universal meaning. It's all about me. It's not about any God. It's not about any Dharma. It's all about me. Atma Dharma means my thing. That's Atma Dharma. I'm doing my thing. That is Paradharma. The supreme occupation. Me and my thing. Reminds me of words of a song back in the 60s. And I always thought about it. I'm doing my thing for my string. In other words, I'm bound up by a string, but I'm doing my thing for my string that's bound me up completely. So there you are with your quest for meaning. Your own meaning has to be your own. And you notice, and we may talk about this more on Sunday. You'll notice that those who say they're doing their own thing and being unique, they're actually always doing what everyone else does. Have you noticed that? It's a joke of material nature. All these people are saying, I'm following my own vision. I'm being individual. I'm being authentic. I'm just being me. I'm doing me. And you look at what they're doing, it's what everyone else is doing. Maybe some of you used to say like that. Huh? I'm doing me. I'm being me. And you just examine what they're about, and they're just repeating what someone else said, imitating someone else's life. So here you are, trying for your own meaning. Yes? Somehow that you've heard that's how to have a successful life, trying for your own meaning. Don't submit to any dogma of Bhagavad Gita. I remember when I first came to New Zealand in '93, the New Age inundation had begun. And so everyone was talking New Age nonsense. And so many persons would tell us, they would come to the loft and they would tell us, oh, Bhagavad Gita, that's #1 on the list of dogma books. It's books that block you from your individual quest for your own meaning. Who is this Krishna who knows so much? Make your own meaning. And you watch as persons try to make their own meaning, and they simply are slaves of their senses. So here you have this effort, this struggle to find meaning, your own meaning. But then what are you told about the universe? The universe is indifferent. It doesn't care. Yet here you are tragically pursuing your own meaning in a universe that doesn't give a damn. So this gets to you unless you take intoxication. Then you forget all about the paradox. You try to burn yourself out on sensuality or intoxication because it doesn't, you can't put it together. My individual quest for meaning, my own meaning, amidst a universe that couldn't care less, a mechanistic universe, an indifferent universe. Before birth, there was nothing. After death, there'll be nothing. Here I am, a speck of existence that was nothing before and will be nothing after. It's enough to drive you crazy, and people are going crazy. So into this whole catastrophe are a few Krishna bhaktas. And so sometimes you even ask yourself, what can I do? What do they expect of me amidst all this illusion? Who am I to think I can resist? I'm a young lady, a young man. I've got my own senses. I've got my mind, which often is all over the place. What am I supposed to do? There's just a few of us in an ocean of ignorance. There's truth to thinking like that. In Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Manushanam sahasreshu kashchid yatati siddhaye. Out of countless persons, very few are trying for self-realization. And of those very few who are trying for self-realization, fewer still know what is the ultimate goal of life. And of those, only one, Kashchin Mam Veti Tattvata, one knows me, one knows Krishna in truth. So in some ways, to be a Bhakti yogi, you have to be a bit of a nonconformist. You have to be able to hold your ground. And you hold your ground with knowledge and experience. The knowledge, when applied, gives you experience. Otherwise, you won't be able to hold your ground. It's like trying to stop a tsunami by holding your hand up. What gives you the strength of conviction to think you could hold out against a tsunami of material illusion? How dare you think like that? Family and friends look at you and say, oh yeah, you're going through that phase, huh? Have any of your family and friends told you that? We understand the phase you're going through. No? Yes, it's a phase. We appreciate you and the phases you're going through in life. We understand that it's very uncomfortable to live with uncertainty. And you're looking for something to hold on to in this indifferent universe. Now, just think about Pritchett Maharaj. He knows how a real human society should be structured. There should be karmis, those who know how to perform good karma for elevation to the heavenly planets. They're gyanis, those who know how to speculate on the impersonal reality. And to do that, they have to have an austere lifestyle. And then the mystic yogis who try for mystic powers. All these types form a real human civilization. But all we've got now are the unregulated who don't have a clue what they're doing. Or they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. They just, as they say, just do it. So it's wild. It's a savage existence. So here is Pritchett Maharaj referring to a real human society and saying that's not enough to be a karmic elevationist trying for a better material life in this life and the next, to be a jnana yogi, metaphysical speculator, to be a mystic yogi trying for mystic powers. It doesn't do it. But those persons are far beyond what you have today. So Bhagavatam is equipping you so you see the whole panorama. So if you're looking to fit human society into what's being described here in verse 1, you've already described the path of liberation, Nivritti Marg. By following that path, one is certainly elevated gradually to the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, from which one is promoted to the spiritual world along with Lord Brahma. So you say, well, how does that relate to us today? It doesn't. It doesn't. What you have today is an unregulated, savage society. So you're watching a tragedy, a massive disaster unfold before your eyes. Human beings losing their human form of life. You're seeing it happen all around you. Human beings have no idea what their next destination is and don't care. Massive catastrophe. So this is why Pritchard Maharaj is astonished. Why don't these living entities accept the path of liberation, devotional service? Why do they sign up for suffering in so many hellish conditions? Now, this is another point that we're going to get deeper into tomorrow. The whole reality that our actions to enjoy can bring about painful suffering in the future sounds so old-fashioned, doesn't it? See, what you have, the way we delude ourselves is how we think. We've got activities of enjoyment. Okay, they're that. And then we have some suffering, but the two things are unconnected. The activities for enjoyment, yes. And suffering, not good. So way over here. And there's no connection between the two, you see? That's what everyone thinks. And then when some suffering comes, why is this misery upon me? Until the misery happens to us, we can keep it out of our mind. Misery is always happening to someone else. And then when it happens to us, we're totally disorientated. Oh, why? Why? We fail to see the connection between endeavors for material indulgence and material pain. Again, this is ignorance. We'll go on reading more of the purport. Pritchard Maharaj was astonished that the living entities in the conditional stage do not accept the path of liberation, devotional service, instead of suffering in so many hellish conditions. This is the symptom of a Vaishnava. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha. A Vaishnava is an ocean of mercy, para dukkha dukhi. He is unhappy because of the unhappiness of others. Unhappy because of the unhappiness of others. These are the emotions of a bhakti yogi. So as we advance more and more in spiritual life, these are the emotions that become prominent in us. I like to watch on Sundays when so many persons come for chanting, dancing, hearing about Krishna, tasting food offered to Krishna. We like to see that because we know that Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is especially satisfied when those activities are going on. This is why everyone likes it when so many guests come on Sunday. You like it, our bhakti yogis like it because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pleased. Never mind what the people are thinking, why they're doing what they're doing. They are chanting, they are dancing, they are hearing and they are tasting prasad. All those activities please Sri Sri Gauranitai, please the Panchatattva. Because we can't tolerate their suffering. We can't tolerate the dense ignorance that's drowning them. We reach out. I was so happy to see the results of, what do you call it, the May month of mercy? Was that it? Huh? Yeah, what was it called? Oh, there's so many. Yes. I'm thinking, do our devotees really understand what they're doing? How they're giving the greatest fortune? How they're helping so many persons stop their suffering? If not immediately, then gradually. Therefore, Pritcha Maharaj, being compassionate toward the conditioned souls suffering in hellish life, suggested that Shukadeva Goswami continue describing the path of liberation, which he had explained in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. The word asamsriti is very important in this connection. Samsriti refers to continuing on the path of birth and death. Asamsriti, on the contrary, refers to nivritti marga, or the path of liberation, by which one's birth and death cease and one gradually progresses to Brahmaloka, unless one is a pure devotee who does not care about going to the higher planetary systems, in which case one immediately returns home back to Godhead by executing devotional service, takta deham punar janma naiti. Pritcha Maharaj, therefore, was very eager to hear from Shukadeva Goswami about the path of liberation for the conditioned soul.